All right, good morning, everyone. Let's call to order our meeting for Wednesday, August 11th.
Commissioner Stottlemyre, Commissioner Harris,
Present.
Chair Waymeyer,
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson,
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
All right, if you just join stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, our invocation today will be led by Pastor Leonard Cheesebro of the New Life in Christ Church in Ottawa. Good morning. I think he's muted. It looks like you're muted. One more. There we go. Can you speak now? Can we hear you? Well, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
It on his end. Leonard, are you there?
Leonard, are you there? Well, you want to step in? Would you be able to?
I wanted to share this with you. This is something that we read in church a few weeks ago. It's called God's Gifts. O holy God, open unto me light for my darkness, courage for my fear, hope for my despair. O loving God, open unto me wisdom for my confusion, forgiveness for my sins, love for my hate. O God of peace, open unto me peace for my turmoil, joy for my sorrow, strength for my weakness. O generous God, open my heart to receive all your gifts. Amen.
All right, well, thank you. All right, on to correspondence and organizational business. I understand Dr. Ransom's here to give us a public health update.
Yeah, I've asked Dr. Ransom to come in this morning. As I've told you guys several times, our COVID team has started meeting again as the pandemic has ramped back up. And the CDC has recently issued new recommendations, and the COVID team believes that the county should follow them. And certainly Dr. Budd, as our public health official, believes that as well. So just wanted to have him give an update to all of you on that guidance, let you ask him any questions that you may have.
Yeah, I think everyone's aware that the Delta variant is spreading rapidly, and that has caused the CDC and the KDHE to reinstitute the recommendations for masks. Pretty much the same recommendations that were in existence before they relaxed them several months ago. So I think we're back in the same boat, and I think we should follow those same recommendations. I think the manifestation of the Delta variant spreading is made most obvious by the number of hospitalizations we have now. We're up to 11. We never had 11 patients in the hospital, even during the height of the pandemic. So I think the number of positive tests, probably doesn't even reflect it well, because as I look at the records on those patients, many of them were sick for 8 or 9 days before they ever came to the hospital. So if they didn't get really sick, there's a lot of people out there who are never tested. They're positive, they never get tested. I don't know how we can figure that. But it's pretty obvious that it is really much worse than it was even at the height of the pandemic here.
Yeah, and to be very clear, the CDC's updated guidance says that in areas with substantial and high transmission, we recommend that everyone wear a mask, vaccinated or not, in public indoor settings. There's no orders attached. It's just a recommendation from the CDC, which, as the four of you know, we followed CDC and KDHE guidance throughout this pandemic. So we feel like it's a no-brainer to continue doing so. It also, their guidance recommends that community leaders encourage vaccination and masking, which we've done throughout this. I mean, our health department is absolutely encouraging vaccinations and masking. And so we feel like practically we have been following it. I've had a meeting internally with my leadership team to discuss following this. They all understand and have began doing so. So just want to make sure that the four of you don't have any issues with that, that you support us doing that, and wanted to give you the opportunity to ask Dr. Budd any questions.
If I walked in and I needed an intensive care bed today, would I get one?
We have one here.
One?
Probably, we have at least one.
All right.
Tomorrow, I don't know.
But, you know, it'd been next week, who knows?
That's right. I mean, it's ramped up
I've
rather
heard of
rapidly.
patients being transferred to North Kansas City, to Wichita. At what point do we run out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a problem all over the state. I would say right now, yes, we have an intensive care bed. Now, whether some of the tertiary centers in Kansas City would be able to accept you, that's another question.
So it's still not a mandate. We're still not forcing anyone to do anything, but given the state of things, you may very well, regardless of your position, want to evaluate anything reasonable you can do to try and protect yourself and others.
Yeah. We are avoiding the mandate, but
Yeah.
as strongly I can recommend it as possible.
You bet.
That's where we are.
You bet.
I don't think we can ever get to the point where we can do a mandate again, because we can't shut down our economy like we did. We can't tell people, everybody, you know, I just don't think we can. But the whole thing is, this is all preventable. This is all preventable.
Absolutely.
If we would have just got our shot, we wouldn't even be here at all.
You're so right.
I do want to take a second and just commend Dr. Budd for his help. He was instrumental through the first wave of the pandemic, and then I'm sure he thought he was getting back to normal practice, kind of his normal operating procedures, and then here we are again, and he's right back. I know he was there at 290 the other night. He's back in front of you, and he's helping the health department on a daily basis. So absolutely appreciate the time that you're giving us, Dr. Budd. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. All right, thank you. Thanks for your time. Okay, public comment. A citizen desiring to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at this time. Discussion is limited to 5 minutes. The commission will not take action or discuss items at this time. Discussion should be limited to matters of county commission business. Public comment is not permitted in regards to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment can become agenda items at a later date.
Norman?
Morning.
Norman Woogie, 3790 Pawnee Road. I see my commissioner's gone, and this is kind of a little bit directed toward him. Well, all the commission probably. Franklin County hasn't really grown too much in the last 25 years, maybe 1,500 people. 2 weeks ago, I complained about the high taxes in Franklin County, and everybody knows that. That's not news. My policy is not to complain without a possible solution. Many times the solution is found in looking back in history. If you are concerned, you can appreciate what I've observed visiting commission for over 25 years. Larry Wright was an advisor to the county and a county attorney for Franklin County. He requested an assistant because of his obligation, his docket, and he advised the commissions in the afternoons of Mondays and Wednesdays. We had, they were pretty busy. If you would take inventory of the lawyers and their assistants, you could surely eliminate quite a number of those. it astounds me. I go online and on how many advisors that you have. And normally, one should stay with one issue, and maybe this is the same issue, I don't know. But it's another problem. Max Shoemaker, you guys probably didn't know him, but years ago was head of the chemical department, and he worked 1 day a week and managed to get everything done. Today, the state of Kansas has 20 noxious weeds or so. And Franklin County also has them. The county has noxious weeds on their property. The two worst ones that affect me is Sarica, Lespedeza. You guys probably aren't acquainted with that. And Johnson grass. And Johnson grass now along Tennessee Road is seeding. The birds get in there. And Johnson grass is a pretty tough weed. It's not native to Kansas. Are the weeds Kansas' responsibility as a state of Kansas or at Franklin County to keep these roads clean? It's somebody's obligations. The birds carry the seeds and on the farm ground. And I never had any, but I'm fighting those Johnson grass quite often. So if that's a responsibility, and hello, Don, wherever you're at. Thank you.
All right. Consent agenda today would include meeting minutes from August 4th, tax change orders in the amount of negative $14,585.66, and emergency vehicle permit. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, down to items of business. First of which is to consider for approval soliciting bids to buy a new vehicle to be used by the building department. Kenneth Cook, our planning and building director, is here. Morning.
Good morning. I think if you guys are aware, I think we've had some issues lately on our vehicles for building department in regards to repairs, and we're coming before you today to request that we can start the process to solicit bids for a possible new vehicle. And talking with Pat, he's feels that having maybe a smaller vehicle will still work for him and his duties, and possibly hopefully help save a little bit on gas money and not having to drive a full-size vehicle around. He does quite often get into some areas that the surfaces aren't very good, and so we do need four-wheel drive, I think, is something that is necessary. But I think he's looking at trying to do something maybe a little bit smaller. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
You'll recall, Cole, that we discussed this during planning's individual budget session. Janet indicated, and certainly she's correct, that we've got room in capital outlay in 2021 to move forward for this. And so they have put a lot of money into this truck. They've gotten good use out of it. So we support the purchase of the vehicle. So.
And Pat was even, his idea, and certainly open to the idea of replacing it with something that was less expensive initially and
Yes.
better on fuel. So
Yep.
I was real responsible of him, appreciated that. So, would anyone care to make a motion to approve the solicitation of quotes for replacement vehicle for the planning and building department?
So move.
Second?
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, our second item of business is to consider issuing an RFP for enterprise resource planning project. Software, I assume.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I believe most of you are aware of this. I believe Derek's talked with you at various times throughout study sessions, retreats, et cetera. So this shouldn't be any surprise that we're now finally able to present this RFP to you. We started meeting on this, I believe, as staff back in March, and I've met weekly for quite a while to discuss what our needs, what our failures with the existing systems are, what services we'd like to do. And primary reasons for going into this project is to push efficiencies in our operations and try and get a little bit more analytics out of the data that we're collecting now. What we have is basically just a request for proposals. It's not committing us to purchasing anything at this time. It is reflective of what staff from various offices are stating as their needs and challenges with the existing system. So at this time, all we are asking is to let us issue this request for proposals.
Yep, and I think it goes without saying, but this is the county-wide software project that we've been talking about. As Dustin said, we've been meeting almost weekly, a committee involving Dustin, myself, Janet, David, Sari, Jamie Wilson, and then Jody and Marilyn from the treasurer's office. There will be other pieces of software. I think planning will have a piece of it. Brandon Sands may have a piece there in management, but we feel like we've got a good cross-section of staff on that panel. A lot of works went into this. The possibilities for what this can do are incredibly exciting. And as I've told you, once we issue this and start getting these proposals, and we will have a study session on this to talk more specifics about what this can potentially do for us. We just want to get these proposals back first. So, but this, I mean, our technology is long overdue for replacement. So certainly very excited about this. Any questions for either of us?
I assume that you have enough research, you've done enough study that you know the kind of companies, you know the kind of software that you are looking for.
We've identified some that we're going to actively send this out to. The last time we did this, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, we did have a couple interested parties that we were not aware of. So once this gets out there, we will have some people probably come to the table that will ask questions and choose to either provide a proposal or based off of what we're asking for or how we respond to their questions may choose not to. But we do have a handful of vendors that we expect to actively engage, and hopefully we'll have some others come to the table as well.
This is actually exciting. We've been talking about this, I think, since I've been on the commission. So it's cool that we're actually moving forward on it.
Any other questions at this point for Dustin?
Not surprising because we have been talking about it for so long. Sorry, I cut you off, Roy.
It just looked like, I was scanning through that whole litany of requests. It looks like these vendors are gonna have to put out a whole lot of energy to even come up with a bid, it looks like.
I think, and we could have taken that a lot farther. We chose early on not to get too detailed in this, but to give a large picture of what it is that we are asking. It could have went farther, and we specifically chose to cut it off at that point.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you asked that or made that comment, Roy, because I want the board to understand just with this project, this is going to be a busy fall for us, because not only does the committee that's put this together need to be in those meetings, but the end users, I mean, county staff who are going to be, think about the motor vehicle clerks, you think about the employees in Janet's office, I mean, HR, and they're going to need to come and they're going to need to attend all of these presentations and literally use the software. And I mean, this is going to be, I mean, we're going to try to have this pinned down this fall to where we're starting implementation at the beginning of 22, but it'll be a massive process to get there. So please, I would ask that the four of you not underestimate the amount of time that my staff and I are going to have to put into doing this, because it's at the end of the day, we think this is going to be between 700 and $1.2 million process, depending on how robust it is. I mean, it's a big project for the county.
I think once we start implementation, we're talking about easily 18 to 24 months on the average if everything goes well. So this will be a several month engagement once we really get started.
And you got to get the right thing, 'cause it's going to be several years that we're going to be
We won't be
using this,
coming
so.
back to the table with another proposal for a while. This is what we're going to live with.
Well, thank you. Motion to get the ball rolling on this would be to issue an RFP for the Enterprise Resource Planning Project.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson,
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right, our third item of business would be to consider waiving landfill fees for structures demolished through the City of Ottawa's condemnation and demolition program. And maybe before you start, I know you're going to speak to the waste side of it. I just want to maybe give history, since I'm on the FCDC board or appointed by this board to that board. The way this agenda item got here really originated with FCDC and has largely been quarterbacked by Paul thus far. He's on a meeting this morning, had a conflict, isn't able to come and present. But after receiving the housing study and demand analysis, which was commissioned by FCDC, it largely reinforced what we already knew, but was backed up this time by data. We need housing in Franklin County, and housing of all kinds, but especially workforce housing. Since that study, a number of things to advance that cause have been done. The City of Ottawa has brought their first waves of the codes to market, or has plans to. And at least 3 of the commissioners are looking at the lakeside lots and considering if there's maybe some additional resources there. Paul's working with a couple other communities to try and get housing projects started there. But when Paul looked back and kind of looked at what we're currently doing or within the county, what's happening that works well in creating lots and places for workforce housing, one of the things that stands out is the City of Ottawa's demolition program. Depending on how many houses are actually go to demolition and aren't, remediated by the owner or sold or demolished another way, about 4 or 5 a year get demolished, and has been an excellent source of creating buildable lots for that type of housing. The average value of a structure placed on a demolished lot in the City of Ottawa is $150,000, a little over $150,000. Ottawa has an existing demolition program. That's kind of why we're starting with Ottawa. I think the logic works anywhere in the county, and I think we're just starting with Ottawa because they do have an existing program, but we should look at the idea of offering this to other communities. So, but you're going to speak to the waste and how it would impact our.
Yeah, so through these discussions, I believe it was last week, you all were wanting a little bit more information to be able to make a good decision. And so I worked with the City of Ottawa, and they provided me some stats on that program. Of the condemnation and demolition program began around 2006. And that process is very long and cumbersome, and there's many opportunities for the landowners to step in and take care of those structures. So not all of the structures go to the demolition stage, and I don't have exact figures on that. But since the program started in 2006, there's been 40 structures that have made it all the way through and have been raised, where they have gone in and demoed those houses. And over the last 5 years, 15 structures have made it to that stage. And so I did a little bit of research, and based on with the information that the city gave, so they provided the contractual cost for, total for each one of those structures comes to just over $96,000 to tear down those 15 structures over the last 5 years. Comes to average about $6,400. Those 15 houses generated about 633 tons of material that was delivered to our C&D landfill. At $31 a ton, you're just under $20,000 for that. comes to an average of about $1,300 for those 15 structures. Now, what do we get for that? The current value of the 15 properties is right at $30,000 according to our appraiser website. There's been 9 homes that have been built since 2006. And again, based on our appraiser website, the new value of those homes is just over $168,000, according to the information that I can find online there. So all told, if all 15 of those sites generated new construction, new homes at the average of the 168, you're going to end up with an increase in about $2 million in valuation for that new construction. So it's a really good deal. Now, I will say that not every site that had a structure demoed on it is probably appropriate for new construction, but to get a sense of what the impact of this program is on our county, which is really positive, and then the cost to us as a county landfill, $1,300, it really, in my estimation, is inconsequential to our operation. And I would highly recommend that we move forward with this. One of the things that we have in the cover sheet here is we want the opportunity to sign off on, each one of these structures that goes through that process has a lot of checks and balances. We would like to be part of that. And so as the city is getting ready to go to condemnation on these and get to that point where they're going to demo the property, a little coordination between the city and the county to ensure that, one, we're aware of the property that's going to be demoed, the timeline, and that way we can also track the tickets that the contractors are getting whenever they come out to deliver the material, just so that we can track all of that. We would like to include a step in there where Derek, as a county administrator, has an opportunity to sign off on each and every one of those.
I do. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to piggyback on that. I think what we're asking the board for today is approval of the policy, but we are still refining the procedure. But the procedure will involve a formal request that crosses my desk. Like I think that we need to ensure, because this is a service we are willing to offer, we need to ensure adequate communication. And without that step, I don't know that we would get it. But if we will refine the policy, and then I think it's also important to note that we're going to treat this as a pilot, and that once we get this policy and procedure refined, we would like to trot it out to the other communities within the county. Like as you said, Colt, City of Ottawa, they already have a demo program. We'll get our procedures aligned, we'll make sure that it works, and then we'll start reaching out to each of the smaller towns, and we'll be able to do the same thing, so.
Important distinction there between the actual policy and then the procedure, which can.
And it's also important to note, I've already had really very preliminary conversations, just spitballing some ideas how we can track the loads of waste to ensure that that it's going to where it needs to be, and then we're tracking those that tonnage and that sort of thing.
And that's something that's already done. When Odd knows, when you demolish something, you have to keep track of the waste just to show that it was properly disposed of, not thrown in the creek, right? So.
Or in somebody's back pasture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Looking, I pulled data and had Jamie, the appraiser, run it. Just on demolitions in general that were done in the city of Ottawa between 2001 and so in the 2020s. 57 structures have been demolished. Now, these aren't all city condemnations. These are everything. But I think it shows what generally happens when a structure is demolished and then what's placed back. And that's where, of the 57, or 57 residents were built on lots that had been previously demolished, and then the average improved value, so of what's placed on there is $150,600. The median's $154,500, so
Yeah.
a little bigger sample, but shows you what the benefit is and
Yeah.
kind of reinforces the data
Yeah,
you
no,
have.
no question, the return on that investment is wonderful,
Good to see those two samples kind of agreeing, one's
Yes,
not
sir.
wildly different.
definitely.
So as we begin to talk about or think about a policy, again, on the heels of a housing study that says we need, as much as we can, we need to do more, this is an incentive. That's why we're stepping in now. So we want to ensure that we're incentivizing more activity. If we know 4 to 5 are done annually, I think part of our policy should be more. You know, if 4 or 5 are done now and we only do 4 or 5 continue, all we've really done is given a discount to that program. It's a great program, but what we want to do is incentivize more activity. So I think part of any policy we put together should have a bar of, 9 demolished properties or 8 to.
What if it comes to the point where, so I have a property that needs to be demolished. If I demolish it, I have to pay for the fees. But if I let the city do it, they get to pay for then the fees are waived. Are we going to have more of those kind of things that?
I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of the city program, but I suspect that those properties, that fee is not, the cost to demolish the property is not waived per se. It goes on their taxes.
Assessed to the taxes, and that's usually what triggers the to go to tax sale. Because
Exactly.
generally, it's not worth redeeming, yeah.
Right.
And that would be my other question, because if you have, so we aren't really saving the city money, we're saving the person who owns it from it going on their taxes, because that cost would be going on their taxes, is that correct?
Yes. The cost of the demolition is assessed to the property, and so either that landowner or whoever picks it up at a tax sale, those sorts of things would still be required. This policy of us, it allows the city to do more with the dollars that they have available.
And there are ways that, so you're worried that somebody's gonna not take care, not do the right thing, and somewhat be rewarded for it by this policy
Right?
if we waive it. There are ways we can take that value, make sure it's assessed to probably to the cost is assessed, but however, the city doesn't have to pay it, basically. What we
Yeah,
want to be able,
probably,
the city
yeah.
to ultimately do is take their set amount of money and be able to do more with it.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
I know, not last night, but last week at their meeting, they had several properties that they went through, and one gentleman, I think, owned 4 of them. 2 of them he had actually already demolished. If this program was not in place, I wondered if he would just say, yeah, go ahead and take it down then, instead of saying, I already did it. I mean, I don't know.
What is the percentage that we find of the demolition that's the waste?
That I don't know.
Okay, I thought I saw that in one of your emails.
As far as, what do you mean by that?
So,
They tear down the house and.
yeah, the city pays has a chunk of money set aside to demolish these houses. We figured out what % of that is the construction and demolition.
Yeah, so there's, the average, again, over the 15 houses, 15 structures, the average contract cost was $6,400. Now, that varies depending on size of structure and that sort of thing, but the average, that generated 633 tons, and the average landfill charge was $1,300.
The thing is this is like double or triple folded because this takes one question mark out when a person's bidding these jobs.
Exactly.
I mean, because you have to make sure you're covered. So, and then that's going to be a savings to this, whoever's demoing
Right.
at that point in time too.
They're not having to, the contractor's not having to guess at how many
The only
tons of
thing-
material.
The only thing they have to do is figure out approximately so they know what they're going to use for vehicles or trash containers or whatever to
But
get it
it
transported.
definitely takes out an
That's a big
unknown that
question
they
mark.
have to
Yep.
account for. So theoretically, their bids are able to reduce
Pinpoint.
to more hard numbers rather than
Yep.
having to have any guesstimates in there to make sure that they're covered. So, and that goes to Commissioner Waymeyer's point where the city theoretically will be able to
About a
do
quarter
more
more. It's about a quarter of the costs.
with the pot of money that they have. It will stretch further and be able to do more structures.
Sarah want to say anything?
David, what happens if the house has, is there certain materials you can't take? Like if it had
Asbestos.
asbestos
Yes,
shingles?
we cannot accept asbestos material, and so that material would have to be mitigated before we're able to accept it at the landfill.
Before they ever tear the house down?
They would have to have that's a whole subset of contractors and whatnot that would have to be identified prior to demolition. That material would have to be removed in accordance with regulations and taken in a closed container to a permitted landfill to be disposed of appropriately. There's a laundry list of rules and regulations associated with that type of thing. Our landfill is not approved for those types of materials.
And I think the city with their program, and it's really not, it's not that we want to condemn your property and turn it down. When they put it into the condemnation program, basically they're putting the owner on notice that says, all right, you are now on the clock and you need to do something with it. Instead of saying you're going to, you need to, or we will be moving ahead. And lots of times that's what it takes
Yes.
to get some of these properties back to where they need to be.
Correct.
So back to kind of looking at a policy, I guess the point I was trying to make, if we're making their program 20, 25% more effective, we just want to make sure that 20, 25% more, at a minimum, activities done, or else it's nothing more than a subsidy, not an incentive. So we just want to make sure we're incentivizing more of this kind of activity.
Well, and we'll have to give some thought to practically how we do that.
Yeah.
And we can, David and I can put our heads together and come up with a proposal. It may be looking at a 5-year average, say.
Sure.
And this is the average number that they do, and let's say that number's 5. Well, they do 5, we're not going to waive anything. But if they get up to, let's say you want to see 8, and they get up to 8, then we can waive, I'm sure we can waive the fees on the extra 3, and then somehow retroactively, help them with the first 5. I mean, I'm sure there are ways we
I
can
don't
do it.
want to put them in a position where they have 8, one of them redeems, then all of a sudden they're in a bad position or
Well,
whatever
yeah.
that number is, so. All right.
But we'll have to talk about how we can draft this policy in a way that does subsidize or that does encourage additional demos, so.
Sure. I think for a defined period of time, we want to come up with that also, just to make sure it works, make sure it has the effect we're hoping for, and then if we want to go again.
Yeah, going through, taking this step to approve this and developing a policy, we'll be tracking that on our end. It won't just be another house coming to the landfill, and so we'll be able to track it and then report on it as well.
I think what I would recommend is, I get the sense that the board is generally in favor of kind of this broad policy of waiving these fees to encourage more demos. David and I will look at specific procedures in terms of what kind of notice requirements, what kind of documentation we want to see, but we will also, in terms of the policy, we will figure out, okay, how are we going to ensure that this leads to more demos? We will bring that piece back to the 5 of you to make sure that you're okay with the specifics of how that's going to work, just so that, as you said, Colt, it doesn't end up a subsidy, but rather it does promote further demolitions.
So are we agreeing, I guess everybody does see the value of going further with this and maybe investigating it? Commissioner Dickinson already has I guess correspondence with another city that saw this, and they're interested in doing the same, so maybe we can run those concurrently, and,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right. So we'll table this item, or, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know.
No
that-
actions needed right now. so-
Don't know that we need action right now.
All right, appreciate it. Item number 4 is consider for approval, Resolution 21-37, which appeals the Fourth Amended Bylaws and interlocal agreement for membership of KCAM, which is our associate cooperative insurance company the county belongs to. Go ahead, Sari.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. And like Colt said, Franklin County is a member of K-Camp. That is our pool. It's a self-insured property and liability pool, and it's composed of 99 Kansas municipalities. Franklin County is one of 71 Kansas counties that's a member. And the Board of Trustees of K-Camp has amended their bylaws and interlocal agreement. They are just requesting the commissioners to accept the changes that they have approved for the Fourth Amended Bylaws and interlocal agreement for membership of K-Camp. I will say we reviewed the updates that they provided, and we didn't see any changes that were of concern. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer those for you.
I also sent the 5 of you a memo that outlined the changes there. I mean, there wasn't anything that really concerned me either, and frankly, we don't have much of a choice in this. Like, if we're going to continue to be a part of K-Camp, then we need to sign this, so.
All right, any questions on this? Would anyone care to make a motion to approve Resolution 21-37, which accepts the Fourth Amended Bylaws and interlocal agreement for membership of K-Camp?
Make that motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Our 5th item of business is consider renewing our contract for 3 years with the State Employee Health Care Commission.
Okay, on this one, just some background. We have been a member or had the health insurance and benefits through the state's plan since 2010, January of 2010, and we are requesting that we extend that contract for another 3 years. The last 3 years, we've seen an average increase of about 3.6%, and then this next year in 2022, the employer contributions will increase about 5%. I will say, on a very positive note, for our employees and their contributions, their medical rates are actually either staying the same or decreasing 2%. So any questions?
That's just for 1 year.
Correct, that's just for 2022.
I think last year they also were
Yeah.
pretty flat, or,
Yeah.
Right, the employee contributions were very
yeah,
flat.
so this
last
is
year.
awesome.
Say-
2% are out.
This,
Which is great. There's nothing more frustrated than doing what we can to get a cost of living adjustment to our employees or any kind of pay increase just to try and keep up or close to keeping up with market, to see it wiped out by a increase in the employee's portion of healthcare, so.
this last contract period was a lot better. The 3-year one prior to that, we saw some spikes to the point where we were concerned and we were about to come to the board with a, proposal to solicit consultants to help us navigate this market. But over the last 3 years, we have seen our rates stay fairly flat. They've stabilized. I mean, Sari and we are always exploring options, and over this next 3-year period, we will continue to do that to ensure that this will still be the right program for us. But certainly, based on what we've seen over the last 3 years, we're comfortable recommending that we sign another 3-year agreement with the state.
No more questions? Would anyone like to make a motion to renew our 3-year contract with the Kansas State Employee Healthcare Commission to provide healthcare benefits to county employees beginning January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2024?
So moved.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Go on to staff reports. Derek?
Yeah, we talked about countywide software today. There's been a strong push on getting this RFP done. Have gotten a draft lease put together for the Historical Society for use of the Visitor Center. Sent that over to the executive director of the Historical Society last week. And my understanding is she's reviewing it this week and presumably will review it with her board, but know that those discussions are ongoing. And that's really all I have. I'll let Casey come give a COVID update, so.
Morning, Casey.
Morning, Commissioners. So, as Dr. Ransom alluded to, our hospital's at capacity, or our hospital's not at capacity, I'm sorry. We're seeing more hospitalizations than we have in the past from COVID. We are at 7 just on Monday, and we're up to 11 just in 2 days. But the metro hospitals are at capacity. Our numbers kind of are on a roller coaster last week. Our high of active cases was 115 active cases, and as of Monday, we have 71 active cases. But I also want to touch on something he didn't touch on. He said there's a lot of cases that are in the community that we aren't seeing, because people can also get like a home test at Walgreens, that they can test themselves and know they may be positive, but then they don't have to report anything to the health department. They give themselves their own quarantine. So that also is something that we're seeing. I've heard from several people that they just took a home test and self-diagnosed. So as for vaccines, we have actually seen an increase in vaccines over the last couple of weeks. And according to the state's numbers, so that includes all the Walgreens, Walmarts, et cetera, Franklin County has gone up 500 vaccines in the last week. So that's great news. We're seeing a lot of people looking for the Pfizer vaccine for those 12 to 18-year-olds. And we weren't able to get it here in Franklin County for a while, but we have had several clinics now with the Pfizer to be able to vaccinate some of those younger people. And as of Monday, our vaccine rates for residents over the age of 12 with one shot is 55% in Franklin County, and fully vaccinated is 48%. So our fully vaccinated rate has kind of hung out in the same spot because Pfizer became available, and then it started counting 12 and up instead of 18 and over. The health department's doing several things to try and get vaccines available to people. I know Nick talked about last week, they attended National Night Out and gave 23 vaccinations. They attended the Lane Fair last Friday and gave 3 vaccines. They were at OU Fusion last night, which is technically more of an event just for OU students, but I know the community was also invited to join. They gave 7 vaccines to OU students last night, and then 1 vaccine to an individual who was not an OU student. They're planning vaccine clinics in the smaller communities in our county, so they are going to Princeton August 12th. And then I know that something is in the works in Pomona, but we can't announce that date yet. But they're working on a vaccine clinic in Pomona. So another thing that we're going to do is send a postcard. And I don't want to say postcard because it's going to be bigger than like this piece of paper, but it'll be it's called a postcard mailer, and we're planning to partner with both the hospital and OFP on this, so it's not like the government shoving the vaccine. We want medical people to also give their recommendations. But this will include information about all the myths that people are seeing about vaccines, trying to debunk those myths or give them the factual information, because people like to read what's on Facebook instead of finding factual research. And then also information about where they can find the vaccine locally. So we'll just have a spot that they can go on our website or phone number to call, or we'll also use the QR code that people can just scan it with their phone and see all of our vaccine clinics coming up and how to schedule an appointment. So I think that's all I have. Any questions?
People, do they keep track of people hospitalized, whether they were vaccinated or not?
Yes, we do, and I know that all the metro hospitals do as well. Last Friday, there was a phone call that all of the metro hospitals CMOs were on, chief medical officers, and they gave a report of how many COVID cases they had, and how many were vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and they're seeing it's less than 10% of vaccinated individuals are hospitalized, and all of their hospitalizations have several underlying comorbidities. And that video is actually available to the public, and it's really eye-opening. So that's something I would suggest anybody that's questioning whether the vaccine is right for them to listen in on. But at Ransom, I know that we have had one hospitalization of a vaccinated individual.
Well, we're not
I'm sorry, Advent Health Ottawa, not Ransom.
No, we're not in the business of making anybody do anything, and we're still not, but we're making it easy to do what we think's a smart decision, and what we know is a healthy one, and what doctors agree is a healthy one. And so, all you can do.
Yep, we just encourage everybody to seek, advice from a medical professional and ask the questions that they have instead of just asking their friends on Facebook what they think.
Casey, you started a news blip you're going to put out after every commission meeting
Before every commission meeting.
Boy,
Yeah, just kind of giving people an update of what's on the agenda and where they can find the video to watch it if they're interested. But I also will send information to our employees after the commission meeting when there are agenda items that affect our employees. Like today, having both the countywide software and state benefits on there. I'll send out some information to our employees.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, anything you need to add from HR, just while you happen to be here? No? All right. Public Works.
So our chip seal project began Monday morning as scheduled, and they should be wrapped up by next Friday if all goes as planned. We feel very good about Circle C paving. Their communication level is really good. We're happy with the overall quality of the work they're doing too. So that's been a real positive for us. Time of year helps as well. Yesterday, I attended a pre-construction conference or meeting with KDOT on the Virginia Road project just north of Lane. Kilo Construction is a contractor on that, and they are planning to begin that project on the 23rd, so just right around the corner. That project has 30 days to complete, 30 working days to complete the project. And so we're expecting them to be done around the end of September, again, if weather cooperates. During the project, the northbound lane of Virginia Road at the project area will be closed. That will allow Kilo and some working room to work in that area. The southbound lane will actually have traffic signals kind of at either end outside the construction area that will allow the traffic to flow through that work zone 24 hours a day. And so just similar to what they had on the K-68 bridge here, So they'll stack up and the light will turn green and they'll be able to travel through while the other side waits. But that will allow folks to be able to get through there as they need to.
You talked several times about coating some of our bridges in a high-strength, low-permeability concrete. That's what they're doing on the bridge over the Magazine, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, so-
exactly. But they're,
Reference as we look at maybe doing some of those down the road. That's the process that's going on there.
Yeah, we've done one on Colorado, and I've got several others that need that. There's a kind of a fine line between where it makes sense to go that route and then replacing the bridge deck. Jackson Road is an example of that bridge. It didn't make sense to chip it all out and do all that and not just go ahead and replace the bridge deck.
Not unlike trying to decide whether to patch a tire or put a new one on. It really depends on how much life's left on that tire.
Exactly. And so we will continue to, I think we're very happy with what we did on Colorado, and we will continue to make those determinations as we go. I've got at least 3 other bridge decks that I know that we need to do something with in the next year or two. And so we'll be evaluating those things. Also, and just to finish up on the Virginia Road project, I did communicate with the city of Lane. I left them a message. I'll try to touch base with an actual person today just to give them a heads up that that's happening. And I'll work with Casey to kind of get the word out on social media so folks are aware and they're not caught off guard on the 23rd whenever suddenly there's a lot of construction activity. On Friday, we're going to be having we've got a tentative meeting to meet with Bartlett and West, a scoping meeting on the Old 50 project. And so I expect once we get through that, sometime in the next couple of weeks after that meeting, we'll be back before you to talk about a contract with them to get that project started, which I expect they'll begin sometime in September, collecting the field work and design through the winter time. So that's right on the horizon. And the last thing I want to visit with you about, well, one other thing. Next Wednesday, I've got a preliminary meeting with pre-application meeting with KDHE and SCS on the landfill. And so all of these meetings will be taking place via Zoom or Teams or something like that, but the ball is rolling on most of these projects. So there's a lot going on. And the last thing I wanted to visit with you about is I've been in contact with Kilo, in fact, hoping to meet with them today out on Tennessee in front of the rock quarry. We have been monitoring the road condition in that area for quite some time. There's a lot of wheel rutting from loaded trucks coming out of the quarry, going north and going south. We were hoping that would last another year. But earlier, within the last month or so, we felt like it was coming apart a little quicker than we anticipated. So we tried to blade patch a fairly good sized area of that. However, with the heavy trucks coming out, they have actually made the situation worse. They have taken that blade patch material and now it's got washboarding effect, and so it's actually a worse situation now than before we put any patch on it. And so we can't just leave it like that. And so I've been in contact with Kilo. Going to get a price for them to do a full depth mill and then bring that back up so that that we have a safe driving environment coming out of that quarry. So we're going to working with them, and I hope to have numbers to be able to bring back before you next Wednesday. But it is something that we need to. I can't let it sit.
Are you just looking at the entrances? Not a large area, just the entrances?
Well, so as they come out of the rock quarry and they turn north to go towards I-35, coming out of the rock quarry, they're loaded and they're making that turning movement, and then they're accelerating quickly coming out of there. And when they hit that material, it causes the tires to bounce, and weighted down like that, it creates that washboarding effect. Going south, we didn't, we elected not to do any chips or patch in that area, but it needs to be addressed as well. And we would have if we had done that, we would have the same sort of thing, because they're turning out and going south towards 68, and it would have had a similar effect. I have in my plans, and I think I've even talked to you all about the need to overlay that whole stretch from 68 to I-35. It's it's just over 3 miles. The work that Kilo would be doing for us right now would need to be done as a part of that project anyway. And so, you know, if in the next year or two we're able to find the money to do an overlay, this isn't wasted dollars. This is dollars that we won't have to spend at that time, because we will have taken care of these worst locations. And so just wanted to bring that to your attention. I've taken a few calls from citizens that are rightfully concerned about it. And so it'll be back before you to fully consider it.
Same thing's happening on Sand Creek Road where they're coming out of the quarry at Sand Creek.
So wheel rutting, yeah.
There's a dip there because of the way truck coming out.
From the clerk's office. Commissioners, Rod, anything?
I have nothing, Cole.
Nor do I. I am? Roy?
If you walk into this building, it's dark. Most of the hallways have minimal lighting, and I walked in, I thought, whoa, we're saving electricity, but then I saw the guys were working, and so, I kind of just glanced down the hallway. I said, I'll take a look after the meeting, but we are getting our new LED lights in the public areas here, and so that's cool that we're moving forward with that project. I read a couple of weeks ago that Kansas was, and this is something we already knew, but Kansas, in a report, was the second best state to move to. As COVID hit, people realized that they can do their jobs not where they have to live, and a lot of people are thinking about relocating. And they did this study they did on the cost of living, property price, happiness, annual income, unemployment figures, hours of sunshine, job prospects. We ranked in the top 26 in all of those, and we were the second best place to move to, the state of Kansas. And Nebraska was number 1. So something that we all think, I think we already knew that, you know, maybe we don't make as much money, but it sure doesn't cost as much to live here. So anyway, that was a cool thing. Again, the city of Ottawa, I did listen to those. They had a study session and a regular session last week. Besides the condemnations, they're doing some refinancing, bond refinancing on some of their electrical bonds. And then they're also doing a new bond to purchase a new cooling tower, which the savings on their refinancing their bonds is pretty much going to pay for the cooling tower. And then the last thing, I have a niece in Mississippi. Her son started school. They have a different school schedule. They started school in July. Yesterday, they went to virtual learning because 25% of the students are under quarantine. Whatever we can do to make that not happen in Ottawa would be awesome. Whether that's, and I think the school district is helping to do that, because at this point, masks are required whether you're vaccinated or not. No matter your age, no matter your position, they're going to require a mask in the school. And the more people that we can get vaccinated, we really don't want that to happen in Ottawa. We know the kids can't learn as well in a virtual situation. So if whatever we can do to help out our kids, which means wear a mask and get vaccinated, and that's all.
We have a request for an executive session. It would be to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception to the COMA statute. And this would be for 15 minutes, include the board, our counselor, and the human resource director. We'd start that at 9:35 for 15 minutes. Is there a motion to approve going into executive session for that?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll be back out at 9 before, at or before 9 feet.
That's so moved.
We are out of executive session, no actions taken, no decisions made. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.